here. Okay, all right. Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday, beautiful day outside, I know. Thank you for your time to be with us here. This is the UW-Platteville Engineering Seminar Series. My name is Danny Shaw, I'm the host. Thank you for your time. And then the whole seminar series is to invite speakers from the industry to show us what's the latest projects and the experience. We want to demonstrate what civil engineers and environmental engineers can do to help the society. We want to show the behind the scene, what's has been done, not only just you see from the customer side, but also the engineering side. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce the speakers very quick. We have, we're very happy to have Gary and also Logan here. Gary Blazek. Yep. Blazek is a principal at Vierbicher and oversees the Madison Municipal Department. He has over 35 years of experience in private consulting, focused on municipal infrastructure projects from initial planning through construction. Gary graduated in 1986 from UW-Madison with a bachelor's degree in civil and environmental engineering. And then Logan Hansen is a design and construction engineering at Vierbicher. He has extensive experience in both public infrastructure and private development projects. Logan graduated from UW-Platteville in 2017 with a bachelor degree in civil engineering. So, well, without further ado, please help me welcome Gary and Logan.
All right. Thanks, Danny. He forgot to tell you that he's my golf partner in the Platteville outing in the summer too. So yes, he's the ringer of the group.
And then I want to add to that, after play with Gary, I'm thinking about the motivation is I want to play as good as Gary.
No. So thanks for having us. I am the old guy of the group here. I'm fighting a cold, so you'll have to excuse my voice a little bit. I got a cough drop in, so we'll make her though. I'm doing a lot better today than yesterday. So thanks for coming. Danny asked if we'd be interested in coming down and talking to you guys for an hour or whatever, and we're happy to do that. So I work in our Madison office. I'll tell you a little bit about Vierbicher. I got some sheets if anybody's interested in what we do further. I can give you some more of that stuff afterwards. But Vierbicher is a civil municipal consulting firm. We've got an office in Madison, Reedsburg, which is where Logan works out of. I also work out of kind of both of them right now. We got one in Milwaukee, and then we got a small one over in Prairie du Chien. We've got about maybe 65 total employees. So we're not a huge firm, but we're not a real small firm either. And we're geared towards municipal engineering. So we do everything a municipality might want to do: surveying, platting, planning, community development. We look for grants, which we're going to highlight here a little bit on Viola. Then we do all the infrastructure design, sanitary sewers, water mains, storm sewers, treatment plant stuff, lift stations, wells, construction observation, which is really what Logan does. He can tell you a little bit more details about what he does on a day-to-day basis. Pretty much anything a municipality would need. We also do private site design stuff. We do parking lots. We've done some stuff here at Platteville over the years too, where we do parking lots. But that's really where we're geared for. We're not structural bridge engineers. We're not big environmental people outside of some wastewater and water supply stuff. So there are other firms that specialize in that, but we are more of a civil municipal type of a firm. So my role at Vierbicher is I'm a principal now, but I still oversee design projects, look for new work, oversee staff at a higher level, and put proposals together. Logan can give you a little spiel on what he does on day to day. He does some different stuff in the summer versus the winter too.
Yeah, I try to do a little bit of everything in the winter. I got opportunities to do some design, and then the summer that kind of rolls into building the stuff that we design. And past couple of years, I've had the opportunity to build my own designs to really help understand all the things we draw in the winter might not work perfectly in the summer when we're out there building it. So it's nice to kind of see what concepts look great on paper and then see how they realistically get built. And like Gary said too, you're kind of just one part of the whole system. We got planning that kind of helps get these projects started with funding, and so you kind of help understand clients' needs and help build those relationships too, talking with the municipalities and help build those relationships.
So Logan does a lot of stuff for Dodgeville, which is just up the road. So he helps them plan their projects, then he'll design them, and then he'll actually be out in the field doing construction on it too. I think Logan was here a couple years ago, maybe
Yeah, a few.
county materials, doing a presentation and. I'm a Madison grad, as Danny said, but. I gotta tell you, Platteville's the best place to get engineers from. I'm not gonna kid you. I am biased for that, so I'm down here at all the career fairs now too. I would rather take a Platteville guy, gal, because you guys are. Better equipped to start working for us than, hate to say it, a Madison person. On the whole, you guys have a little more practical program, I think. They're a little more theory over there, so. I am a fan of all the Platteville grads. In fact, we've been hiring quite a few lately, so. Kate Wright, she's not here, is she? There you are. You're starting in a few months, right?
Yep.
Cole Lenz just started with us, in January. So that's just in the Madison office. We got several others in Reedsburg too, so. With that, I'll get started talking about one of the projects we did. This is the Village of Viola, which is in western Wisconsin. I don't know if anybody's familiar where that is. We will show it on the map here. Yes, slideshow won't get into there. So Viola is in Vernon and Richland County. Part of the city is in each of those counties, which makes it a little more challenging, but just so you got an idea on where this project is at, it's right there. The Kickapoo River bisects the village. It's in blue there, so you can see the north side and the south side. And what happens has happened. I think they've experienced 4 or 5 major floods since 2008. I'll show you some pictures coming up here, but hang on, go back. I'll just kind of point this out a little bit. Their treatment facility is up here. All this part of the village, and the people on Zoom can probably be able to see this, but there's a lift station sitting right here. That all drains to that lift station. The high school is down here. All this goes to that lift station, which goes over to the treatment facility. They've got 3 wells. They're all on this side of the village, nothing over here. So what happens, the Kickapoo River back in 2018 had a major flood, affected all the communities along the Kickapoo River. Pretty much separated the town north and south. This was impassable, as you'll see here shortly. So it was a real challenge to provide just typical services to anybody on this side. Their major employer is Go Macro. They make a nutritional bar that goes throughout the country. So they all got separated. And for any emergency vehicle to get from one side of the town to the other, it was like a 20-minute trip because they had to go away. So that was a real problem. So that's kind of how the city is set up. And if you look at some of the other Lafarge, some of the other communities on the Kickapoo, they have issues too. Darlington has a lot of flooding problems. So we kind of flood proofed Darlington about 20 years ago because they had buildings that were getting flooded out pretty severely too. So anybody on the Kickapoo since 2000 has been getting hit with floods pretty well. So this map shows the floodway, which are the red lines here. Here's the Kickapoo River. The light blue cyan color is the 100-year flood. The yellow is the 500-year flood, and the dark blue is about where the flood of 2018 hit. So you can see a lot of the downtown was in trouble. And you'll see that here shortly. So what is the community supposed to do? This is a community of only about 700 people. So they don't have a lot of money to put into this infrastructure that they need to get people out of the floodplain. So that is one thing that Vierbicher does well. So here's a series of pictures that I want to go through that kind of show you. This is the whole valley that got flooded out. And as we go through them a little bit, you can see how devastated the downtown was. pretty much shut the town down for the better part of a month before things dried up over there. So if you can imagine living here, the treatment plant that I pointed out early on is way over here. Here's the bridge across the Kickapoo River. So nobody is getting across from one side to the other. This is two major highways, 56 and then 113 go through there. So they were in trouble for quite a few days here before water started to recede. What happens is the water just make their way downstream. So the people downstream from this knew that this was coming, and they could only do so much to protect themselves. So again, here's the bridge that crosses the Kickapoo. Wasn't passable, so they could get as far as the bridge. This is State Highway 131. 150 or Highway 56 goes through here too. That was passable. And then this was all the downtown, as you can see, that was just post. There was recreation, camping and stuff here. This is a restroom area. It had a mark on the side of the wall where the 2008 flood was. This flood was at the top of the roof here, so pretty much shut everything down. Here's another picture, another part of town. This is the Go Macro site that I mentioned, the biggest employer, but Kickapoo goes on the backside of that. So they were not impacted, but they could not get any of the services from the village, which are housed in the other side of town. So if there was a fire or something else, there would be some serious problems with that too. So there were a lot of pictures. This was, I think, August of 2018 when this all happened. Again, here's the treatment facility down here. They did overtop the banks of the lagoon system. This was all flooded out here. Stuff is somewhat already receding, but it's still, there's nothing worse than trying to fight flooding. It'll mess things up real fast, and you got some real problems. So this at least gives you an idea on how devastating this was. And this is just one town. You could go up and down the Kickapoo River and it's the same thing everywhere. These are just showing some boats off of Highway 56. Is anybody from that area at all? Yeah, so you probably lived it pretty good. Oh, well, you guys got nailed in 2008, right? Pretty bad. We helped you guys out too, where we relocated the whole downtown into a new development. Yeah, same type of thing here. Yeah, that slows you down quite a bit when you get something like that. And so you experienced the same thing, just an earlier version. So Viola did the same thing, and every few years they were going through a similar event, not quite as extensive as this. This is the worst one that they had, but Gaze Mills had it really bad too in 2008, and they got similar. We did similar engineering to them that we did with Viola here, and I'll kind of go through that. But it's it'll stop a city in its tracks, and there's nothing you can do about it. So what we did is they had got a real rural development search grant for $30,000, and that came from EDA, federal program. And what that allows them to do is to look at new potential sites. So all those areas that got flooded were in the floodplain, floodway. The idea is to relocate them out. And the same thing happened in Gaze Mills. We kind of took their downtown, made a new development up the hill where they have commercial residential lots. And I think Gaze Mills is doing pretty well right now, right? So the same thing is the hope for Viola here. So the initial grant was only $30,000, and what we did with that is trying to identify some potential areas where we can relocate commercial properties, residential properties. And what comes along with that then is just to try and get them out of the Kickapoo floodplain. So we end up doing a little engineering report for that, environmental stuff, just to see the feasibility of it. And then an environmental report goes along with that. Those are all standard reports that are required when you're trying to do these types of projects and grant money is involved. So we came up with 3 different potential sites. We call them site A, B, and C. Site A was commercial. Site B had both commercial and residential, and then site C was residential. So here are the three sites. Site A was here. That Go Macro facility is down in this area here. So this was going to be a commercial site. This here is site B, which had residential on this top and commercial along the highway here. And then site C is more in the downtown area where it had residential. This was just going to be potentially a commercial site that the village already owned too. So the village had to go acquire these properties. And their only way they can do that is with some help with some funding, some state or federal dollars. So we'll talk a little bit more, but site A did not pan out because EDA's funding didn't come through. We ended up developing both site B and site C. And included in just the developments, there was also probably 10 or 12 additional infrastructure improvements, which Logan was able to help do some design work on. But the challenging thing is this was on a big hill. So we have some really steep streets that we'll show you. 16% grades is steep. We don't like to do them that steep, but when you got hills like they do here, we didn't really have much of a choice. So those are the three sites that came on the initial search grant. And then they got another grant and the regional planning authority went out and sent out requests for proposals to engineering firms. We were one of them. There was one for Viola, Lafarge, I think Reedstown. There might have been one more along the Kickapoo. And we got the Viola one. They had about $200,000 to do this next phase. I think our portion of it was about $130,000. And what this included us to go in there and do a more detailed analysis of all the public infrastructure, including the fire station, the municipal building, all their wells, all their sanitary facilities, water mains, the treatment facility, put a report together and give recommendations on how we can improve some of the things. That was so this next phase. So we came up with the concepts, cost estimates for the different facilities, the different sites that we're talking about, came up with layouts. This involved a bunch of public engagement where we'd have public meetings similar to what we're doing here. The public would come in, we'd talk about this, that, what we're trying to accomplish. Just looking for different sites and some costs that make this work. And then after that, we would develop these funding strategies.
I think to the point there, as far as cost estimates, this was 2021 going into 2022, or even before that, with how much lead time you have with planning these in a normal economic atmosphere, your estimates are generally going to hold true, but 10% year to year, we were at the point like week to week, you couldn't trust your estimates.
COVID did not help us. The supply chain got all messed up. We're waiting for electrical pedestals and those types of things over a year out before you can get them once you start ordering. It's just unbelievable what's happened here. Water main was 9 months out, so nobody could hold any prices, and they're still trying to catch up on that stuff. So Logan's right, putting an estimate together is one thing, but doing it accurately now is kind of a gamble, I guess. So this here is a more detailed concept of site B. Again, this is way up on top of the hill. This is Highway 131. This is the lower area. So what we had planned is commercial along the highway, residential here. This is multifamily. So we got apartment buildings here and here, a zip stop, which is like a quick trip here. As you'll see here, the zip stop got built. The 2 apartment buildings are already built. These lots are ready to go, and we ended up having another water well up here. So we do have a new well on this side of the river now. So that's one thing that the village wanted to do in case they got separated again. This part on top was a future phase, but now I got like $2.7 million to do that too, through a grant from the federal government. So that's the next phase. It's going to happen. Everybody wants the houses on top because they got fabulous views. You'll see some of that in these pictures coming up. So this was one of the developments that kind of shows everything that we do without the funding in the community development portion of this, none of this can happen. I'm glad we have other people doing the funding and the community development stuff, because it's like a house of cards to me. If one thing falls through and doesn't come through, I don't know how they're gonna make it work with the dollars, but it did work out, which I'm happy about, so. So we've got commercial lots set up. We've got an outlot down here for future stormwater. We've got stormwater here and here that takes care of the stormwater for the whole plat. We got another commercial lot that's ready to go here. The 2 16-unit apartment buildings are built, and I think they are almost full. So that's good. We'll get a little bit more detailed into the funding here. Here is what was considered Site C on the other side of town. They had a lot of hill coming this way, and there was always flooding issues down here. It all works its way over here and gets to the Kickapoo. So as part of this, we put in a concept to do a interceptor for the storm sewer to cut that off to help everything down here. But this street did not go through before, so this is a new road, new water main, new street, new sanitary sewer. And then this is all set up for these fourplexes and then a duplex here. They have a developer that's gonna do this stuff. He's gonna start here in end of this month or in April. He's gonna start building this stuff too, so this stuff's gonna happen as well. So it's pretty successful that they've already got stuff moving out here. And I'll explain that a little bit with what happened with the TIF, but so the funding strategy, we ended up getting $2.9 million in grants. And we got that through several sources, USDA rural development, there's wastewater and water, separate grants for that. RD is USDA disaster recovery grant. CDBG is a state program. That's a public facility they got for that. So EDA planning and construction. So overall in grants, which is free money for them, almost $3 million to make this thing work. Again, a community of 700, they could never afford to do any of this stuff. So, and then they also got some low interest loans. They're like 40-year loans with hardly any interest on them. So they did get a wastewater and a water loan, and then tax increment financing is TIF. That is a financing tool for communities that I'll try to make it simple and explain. If you had farmland here, it's got this much tax base. Well, if the village were to include that into a TIF and want to put in commercial stuff, that tax is going to be higher. They're going to generate more tax dollars from that because the commercial stuff is worth a lot more than just the farmland. So that increment from what it was with the farmland versus the commercial, that goes to paying back this TIF, and that can be done over 27 or 22 years. So that's how the village can generate money from a TIF, and then after that's done, it goes back to all the local tax people that get the money, the schools, the county, the village, they all get their fair share again. So a TIF, they have 3 different TIF districts in the village. So that was important to help make the grants work, because some of those grants are 80-20 grant matches. So the village had to come up with some dollars for that. So TIF is another big tool that communities use, and we use quite a bit to help finance a lot of these infrastructure improvements. So project implementation. So this started again, 2018 is when the flood happened. This started probably in 2019. So we're into our 4th year, and this is just one village this is happening with. I would say the Village of Viola is probably a lot farther along than some of the other villages that got flooded out for various reasons. Some of them didn't have the TIF capacity to help fund some of the stuff, so they weren't able to go through with all the development stuff. But Viola's done very well. Wild development, the big one would have commercial and residential in there, that is completed. I think I got another picture coming up. The York development, which is that second one, that one is completed and stuff will go in. And then the third part of it was this municipal infrastructure. That is currently out for bid. Those bids are going to be open next week. So these are the different improvements that we did with all the dollars we got. in addition to the 2 developments we did. So over here, we had some backflow preventers that we put on the sewer so that sewer wouldn't back up into these homes. Here we got new sanitary, new water mains. This area 4 is all in the floodplain. Well, they got sanitary sewers that go through there, so we're flood proofing all the manholes. All the manholes are getting taken up, putting new lids on them that are rubber gasketed so that they hopefully hold and the floodwaters don't go in. Because what happens is if they get inundated, and what happened to that lift station here, it was getting all stormwater in there and there was nothing they could do. It's just flowing like crazy. So that was one area that we're gonna flood proof everything in the floodplain. New water main facilities here as number 6. We're gonna slip line some sanitary sewer here. New water main and sanitary sewer in this green area. And this is a new paved driveway up to the reservoir. So all those projects were able to be funded with the funding package that got put together from the various funding agencies. So those plus the 2 developments, that's where we're coming up with the $5 or $6 billion. So you can imagine a town of 700. This is a huge deal for these guys because they don't see development like this ever. And I don't know if you guys have ever been to Viola. They got the big Colt and Pony show in September where 10,000 people will come into the town. So they're all excited and proud to show them everything that they're doing here. And they should be. It's quite a endeavor that they've taken on here. So the private developments, we've got, like I mentioned, 2 16-unit apartment buildings. Those are done, filled up. The zip stop is done and is been very busy. The commercial lots are ready to go. I don't know that they have anything other than what was in the zip stop. And then the residential lots, those single family and duplex lots are set to go. So here it is again. This is in, these 2 are in, these are platted and ready to go. This lighter shade is the new phase that's going to be starting design this year and maybe start doing some stuff next year. The stormwater is all in for this. So it is actually quite nice the way it turned out. As we mentioned earlier, this is on a huge hill. So we were squeezing stuff together to make the stormwater work and get all the area we needed for parking and for the buildings to work. We had different layouts to try to make this thing work.
I think this is a great example of why engineers and planners don't always get along too, because this looks really simple. Just draw some lines really quick and then you realize your grade change is just obnoxious to get to that second phase. You have to worry about just inter-office communication between the people working on the private developments of as far as what their sites are looking like. And then you have a second private development with a gas station, your foundation shift 2 feet and throw the whole road off. So throughout every aspect of this project, communication is super critical because you can run into a situation where you've got shovels in the ground and that foundation at that apartment complex doesn't jive with your street. So a lot of adjustments, a lot of meetings with these types of projects.
Yeah, it was challenging with all the different agencies because they have dates that they have to have this approved and done. And it takes a while sometimes for them to approve our plans and get things going. That happened here as well. We had a builder lined up to do the 2 apartment complexes. He needed to have these things ready to be done last June so he could start renting. Well, the fall before that, we were still waiting to get approval for some of the funding agencies. We weren't getting it. We ended up having to do an advanced grading contract. So we can get a contractor out there to start grading these sites so these guys could get in here and start it. So they were putting these buildings in before we even had the roads and the sewers in. So that is one nice thing that we were able to do. We did the site work for both of this and the infrastructure. Had it been another firm, it might have been a little tougher to coordinate all that stuff. But not only is it difficult to do the construction stuff, you gotta be careful with all the funding approvals too, because they won't fund some of the stuff if you start before they're saying, yeah, you're good. So that did make it a bit of a challenge. So that's why we had to split off an advanced grading contract. So here's some of the pictures. Afterwards, there's that Go Mackerel facility down here. This is the main road coming up. I think there's like 60, 70 feet of fall from where we are down to the road on the bottom. So the lots on either side are set up. These will be the single family. The well site is over to the right. Here's one of the apartment buildings. The other one is right here. But you can see the nice views they got out here. It's really pretty out here. Just a few more pictures that kind of give you an idea of what the finished product was. This was all somewhat wooded beforehand, so a lot of this stuff had to be cleared out. So these were pictures taken last fall. Again, this is one of the apartment buildings. The zip stop is on the right here. This is actually a park. It's gonna be steep. It's probably just gonna be nothing. They're not really gonna have any facilities in there, but it's gonna be village owned. This just kind of shows you the back slope and how steep it was on one of those back apartments, but the developer was fine with it. Here's the zip stop under construction. And then here's kind of the zip stop all finished out at the end. So that's really Viola. And that's a 4-year deal. We'll see at the end of this year, they should have all those other infrastructure projects done. So by fall, they should be in great shape. Everybody has an opportunity to move out of the flood zone if they wanted to and choose to. Some of them they cannot, they got condemned, they can't go back. So at least now they have a spot where they can relocate to. The other thing that Viola has is they got fiber optic everywhere, which is nice. So anybody could work there and work from anywhere, because that's one of the things they've been pushing. The next thing they're pushing is solar. They want to be totally green here in the next 10 or 12 years, I think. So that's the next thing. We applied for another grant for them to increase their solar capabilities. But Viola is a small rural type community. But with that high-speed internet they got there and all this other stuff they got going on, it's already spurred economic development in that whole area. And it's not only helped them from the disaster, but I think it's given them a boost to move forward and continue with, with COVID, everybody, a lot of people are leaving the bigger towns and want to stay in the smaller towns. And Viola has that ability to take care of that now. So with that, you got anything else you want to add?
I was just gonna say, kind of tie a bow on the funding stuff too. The USDA, the EDA, there are certain programs we use frequently because we know the inner workings of them. We know the effort that's going to be tied with it. There's certain funding you can get 500,000, but you're going to have 100,000 in applying for it. So that there's certain programs out there that don't necessarily even make sense for some of these small communities to have to foot the bill for, but these are kind of the puzzle pieces we generally put together for our projects.
Yeah, and those are changing all the time. So we have people that's all they do. I'm an engineer. That stuff's over my head. You got to be working on it every week to stay in touch with all that stuff because it's difficult. We have enough problems just with the approving agencies with DNR and the counties and stuff like that to make sure we're on their regulations. But the funding thing is a whole nother deal that people got to really focus on. So I'm happy we have people that's all they do. With that, I guess we'll open her up to questions or comments. It is a successful project.
Questions? Any questions? Sure. Here, if you use this in the Zoom.
So I'm not an engineer. So I'm at the risk of asking probably what everybody's like, what a stupid question.
Give it a shot.
Okay, so you said this happened in August. Where I come from, flooding occurs during the spring thaw.
Yeah.
So this was obviously storm runoff.
Yeah, if you remember, were you here in 2018?
Nope.
We got a storm cloud that sat in Vernon County for several days.
Oh.
And they got over the 500-year event. The Kickapoo Valley or Kickapoo River now is getting remodeled by the DNR and Army Corps. So there will be new flood models for that. Vernon County and Dane County, Western Dane County really got nailed in August of 2018. And this is what happened. Prior to this, though, I think there were 4 previous floods, not quite to this magnitude, that the Kickapoo Valley flooded on, Gaze Mills back in 2008. These guys got it too. And since then, I think there were 2 or 3 other ones.
So that leads me to my question. Is your planning and your engineering, does it differ based upon whether it's a spring thaw, kind of a slow, here it comes, versus a real quick storm runoff
Yeah.
type of planning?
Well, storm sewers are based on a 10-year design storm. Typically, that's what a storm sewers is set up for. Culverts might be 25 or 50-year storm, and then your detention basins are typically 100. Dane County now requires you to do a 200-year storm with that. So there are different models to make your hydrographs for storm events depending on where you are. They've got studies all over the state, all over the country, on the type of storm. Typically, it's a 24-hour event storm, and you're looking at a 2-year event, 5, 10, 25, 100-year, now a 200-year. And that's how you would size your storm under detention. You get something like this that comes through that's in excess of 200 or 500-year storm. There isn't anything you're going to be able to do about it. We have looked at levees, how can you, and we've done this in other communities. Elroy's got one, Reedsburg's got one, where they put up steel sheeting so that they're protecting people on the other side. That was kind of looked at here too, but it wouldn't work because of the terrain and stuff like that. So the idea was to try to get everybody out of the floodplain and get them to higher ground. Certainly they could get a big storm in spring too, but over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, it seems like the rain events have been changing and we're getting much more harder storms that are creating issues like we're seeing here. So we'll see if we get another one of these, at least the people won't be sitting in the floodplain and get hammered. There are other communities, Darlington, I mentioned in the beginning, where we flood-proof the buildings, where they have sheets and sheathings and gates that they can put up to help protect so the water doesn't come in there. So this is an unusual event. The lift station that I mentioned in the beginning, we are building flood walls around that right now, and there will be a gate in front of that too, so that is not impacted by any future floods, and we based it on the flood heights of this past storm. So they should be safe. I don't want to say forever, but if they see another event like this, that's really unfortunate. Does that somewhat answer your question?
Right. So spring thaws, I'm from Nebraska. Spring thaws are kind of this thing where everybody kind of knows it's coming because it's working its way
Yeah.
down. And so it's not kind of the same type of event. So I wondered if
It's
the planning
not,
was different.
Sometimes you get an unusual February rain where the ground is still frozen and you still got snow out there. Those can be pretty bad too, because you don't get the infiltration.
Yeah.
Because it's frozen ground.
I think on
And you get a lot of runoff from those.
the less extreme level to a 500-year floods versus a localized flood, when we do our reconstruction, so we're going through the streets that were built in the 40s, whatever. Apparently no one thought it was ever going to rain because their houses are back pitched, their driveways just sheet right in there. A lot of times we try to come in as much as we can to improve it, and if we're drop the street 2 feet to get positive drainage out, so you can you're not going to collect all that water maybe, but you can make sure it's getting where you want it to get. And the same thing with inlet placement. Try to put those somewhat strategically. And like Gary said, sometimes you can't, sizing wise, you can only do so much. You kind of have to do a worst case of, okay, when this curve overtops, where's it going to go kind of approach.
Yeah, stormwater is looked at a lot more critically now than it was 50 years ago. You look at any town, older parts of town doesn't have the storm sewer that any of the newer stuff has right now. So design of even storm sewers is a lot more than what it used to be. So typically, 90% of your storms are a 2-year event or less. So it's not a problem. It's a nuisance, if anything. It's these big gully washers. And like I said, the storm sewers are typically sized to handle a 10-year storm. So if you get something that's 100-year, it's going to be washing into the streets and through the yards. You're just hoping that your buildings are high enough, it's not going to get into the basements. But if you get something like this where it overtops riverbanks, you got real problems. And there's not much you can do there. So
I think Dean Parker has a question. Philip, you want to unmute yourself?
Hey, yeah, this is all for Logan, okay?
Oh,
Hello. So I'm really disappointed, Logan. You gave a presentation. I came to a presentation you're giving on a flood, and I did see one hydraulic grade line. This is very sad. But
You
it's
learn a
really
lot of
cool.
realistic things when you graduate, Dr. Parker.
What's that?
You learn more realistic things after you graduate, I guess.
Exactly. Well, so that was really my question, is that you had, I mean, your talk is here is a flood mitigation project, and you're talking all about relationships. I heard you talk about, you talked about communication, you talked about financing and property acquisition and so forth. So for all the, I see there's quite a few students in the crowd here. So how do you, what advice do you have for them so that they are prepared? And were you prepared for this, and how can they be prepared for this? Right, the engineering career isn't. I think they know that. I think we do a good job of that. Engineering career isn't just doing the calculations. So you feel prepared, and did you feel prepared, and what should you have any advice for them?
Yeah, I think you learn those first couple of years, you learn a lot about the realism, maybe as far as how a project goes. You're maybe not doing hydrographs for every single design. And a lot of these, a new construction project versus a reconstruction are two different things. A lot of times with the reconstruction, you're trying to fix issues. But there's certain situations where you have to consider the public aspect. If you're putting a huge storm pipe in somebody's backyard, even though it was always there, but you're putting a brand new one, they might freak out because it's twice the size and they think it's going to cause a flood, even though it's helping everything. So I think a lot of it is establishing, what the municipality is expecting as far as a successful project. It's a lot of more soft skills than more technical skills.
I can weigh in a little bit on that too. I'm the older guy again, so the Dr. Parker that asked the question. Your students out of Platteville here are in fine shape. They don't have to worry too much about things. When I came through, I was doing a lot of this stuff by hand, creating those hydrographs, using my actual calculator to figure all this stuff out. Now everything is CAD generated, computer generated. So it's a little easier to do. Maybe they don't understand the theory of it like us older guys did, because we had to do it by hand. But they'll learn everything they need. If they come out of here, they'll have the basic skill set that they need. I will tell everybody, and it's really important now, that engineers don't really write very well. Everybody's on their phone with text messages and stuff. If there's one thing I can tell you guys, learn how to write it and put a good letter together. The art of writing is lost in engineering, I think. So not only do you have to know the engineeringness, you do need to put proposals together, write complete sentences that are succinct, so you can get your point across. So some of those soft skills are as important as the engineering skills. As far as learning, and when I was coming through, I didn't have the CAD portion of this learning. You guys have to learn CAD, and you also have to learn engineering. So I understand it's a monumental task. But with what you guys are coming out of school with now, you guys will be fine. There are lots of engineers at every company that will help with whatever you guys need. But learn how to write a good letter and learn how to talk on the phone. Not everything's going to be texting when you get out into the real world.
But we do have you on record and recorded saying Platteville engineers are better than Madison engineers. Yes, Dean Parker, you heard that, right?
I'm okay with that, even though I'm a Madison guy. That's my opinion. I like Platteville.
Any other questions?
All right. So you were saying that Viola had a lot, they were kind of lucky in the fact that they got their funding all put together, and some of the other communities on the Kickapoo weren't getting the same funding as them to get the development
I don't
that they
wanna say
needed.
They weren't lucky. They had a good team working with them, and that includes our community development people who have good relationships with Department of Administration, the EDA, rural development. And we work together to see which agency can provide what. So we come up with different packages. Viola had some TIF capacity, which is what they can provide. Not all the other communities had TIF ability to do it because they already maxed out. So with all the funding that came from some of these other public agencies and with what Viola was able to put towards it, they were able to get a lot of things done. We did the same thing up in the Village of Maine, which used to be Brokaw, which is north of Wausau. They got a lot of funding like this too. And they were able to redo their sanitary sewer water main, and they got new streets out of it because they had to tear them up just to get those facilities in. And a lot of that stuff was grants and TIF eligible stuff that they were able to get dollars for to make it work. The big thing up there is they had a paper company that shut the doors. The paper company was using 95% of the water that was coming from Wausau, so it was piped up there maybe a few miles. So as soon as they stopped requiring all that water, everybody else in town, by the time the water got to them, which was 30 days, the water was bad. So they had another issue, how they gonna deal with their water system, and we were able to help them with that too. Similar situation here, where they got a lot of funding and some TIF money to redo that. They haven't gotten the economic boost that I think Viola's gonna get, but that's because they didn't really want some of that development to happen, so.
So do you think Viola would have been considered in the same aspect as they were if they didn't have that big industry to go macro there?
That helps, because that really is funding their TIF that's providing a lot of dollars for them to go. I think Lafarge didn't have the TIF capacity and they weren't able to get all that funding into it too, to make everything happen there. But not only did they get 2 developments, they got all those other infrastructure improvements that helped the town as well. So I hate to say it's a perfect storm, but you've got to be creative in putting these funding packages together. And you see if one of them were to pull out, it could be a real problem. And that's what we had to do. We had to scale back. We lost that whole site A because we just didn't have the funding for it. And it worked out.
And I have one more question. So you said that their treatment plant was impacted. Do you know what type of damage was sustained to that?
Well, it was a lagoon system.
Okay.
So all the floodwaters got in there. It wasn't functioning. I mean, everything was just washing down the stream, right down the creek. Now it's back in shape. They had to do some work with it, but the lagoons themselves didn't get damaged or anything, but they had to re-get everything going with, and I'm not a wastewater guy, but whatever they had to do to get all that stuff happening, but they're fine and they're back up and running. And hopefully now they won't have this happen in the future.
All right, any other questions? I think let's do the chat here. We have 2 questions. One is Christina Fields said, will the new residential and commercial areas have sidewalk for the people? If you
Do
can
they
go,
have sidewalk?
yeah, if you can go to the picture, I think there are pictures there. Looks like
Yeah.
there's no sidewalk. One more.
Right, in this,
Yeah, so there's no sidewalk.
no. Not all communities require that. It's just based on their local ordinance. There are sidewalks all downtown. This was a challenge with the grades and everything in the cost. Yeah, we could have put sidewalks in here, but they elected not to do that.
I would even standpoint of that to the ADA requirements, you kind of snowball into when you're going down at 16%. You'd have to put so many landing pads on there that it would be a bacon strip. But yeah, like Gary said, you kind of zoom out, see the big picture. You know, it's a dead end street anyway. You're not gonna have a high traffic through there. If somebody wants to go for a walk, they're, you know, most likely just gonna walk on the street.
There are other parts of the village that, again, this is a small town, 700 people. It's not like you're in Platteville or Madison or something like that where you need sidewalks to separate traffic. There's not a lot of traffic going.
Okay, all right. Thank you. And then the other question is, community planning. It seems municipalities must think about not allowing future development in a 100+ year flooding plan. So for the strategic planning, is there an overall strategy driven by the state for this? Who is the overlooking?
Yeah, the counties are usually the overseers of the floodplain stuff. nobody these days would allow a development to go in the floodplain or even a commercial building. They wouldn't be able to get insurance for it. You gotta have the special flood insurance, but even that would be cost prohibitive to be able to do something like that. So the chances of somebody building in the floodplain are zero, I would say. It just wouldn't happen.
Well, I think you can build in it as long as you fill yourself.
Well, yeah, but then you gotta study it to make sure you're not impacting other parts of the floodplain and do compensation storage and all this stuff. So, yeah, maybe you can get around it by doing that, but you wouldn't knowingly put a building into a floodplain where it could get hit by a flood 100 years.
I got this. one
Yep.
back here. So I'm sorry, I got the wrong start time. So
You're
I
good.
missed the good stuff at the beginning. But you said this was roughly a 500-year flood
Flood.
event,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's
Okay.
what they estimated at.
Right.
It was well above the 102.
Right.
If you go back to the slides, it shows at the beginning.
And so the big question there is, and it's always the question we face in engineering, right, is if we restrict development in the 100-year floodplain, it still doesn't matter when you have a 500-year flood.
Right. Where
And
it's a
those are
flood-
hard decisions.
Well,
going
right,
for-
it's-
right,
it's a
okay,
cost
200
thing.
year?
Yeah.
To 250-year.
You know, you can see here, the red is really the floodway. The flood fringe or the floodway was typically always the 100-year. That would be the cyan, the light blue part, right? And some of these communities are really old, you know, so that these models or these lines weren't available 100 years ago. Yeah, so you would be hard pressed. You wouldn't get anything in the red right now. Then it starts to be economics. The 100-year floodplain, nobody would want to be in there either. Again, this is the biggest storm that I think the state's seen in, I want to say forever, but it seems lately in the last 20 years, we're seeing a lot more of these 100+ storms, right? You see them every other year now, it seems, in some communities. It's comes to economics. Where are you going to put your money and what do you want? Where do you want your buildings to be? If most communities are along a waterway, right? Either a river or a lake. That's where a lot of developments happen. You got to be careful with that because you get something like this happens and you got real problems.
Yeah, I guess I was floating it out there, not that I was expecting you to give me the answer, but you know, that going forward, you're going to be facing communities that don't have the background you have, you know, potentially making pretty
Yeah, the
significant
Army-
decisions about
Right, the Army
economics and
Corps
risk.
and DNR are coming out with new flood maps through the Kickapoo. And that will have an impact on any future development in those areas for sure. And it's based on the storms we've been seeing in the last 20 years.
Right.
Yeah.
So I actually had a question to ask you, you know, in the coming 10 years, right? So all those houses here will be gone or at least not
No,
resident,
yeah.
not
Right
being
now, it's
used?
pretty well abandoned. Anything that's in here, there's a few things that are still okay here. Even some of the municipal stuff, the municipal building here and the fire station. I don't know that they're gonna get rid of that stuff. It didn't impact these like it did. I mean, these had water going through them, right? These had water in the streets. The buildings are fine. So those will be okay. And I don't see anything happening with that. But anything on the lower end, they are gonna be abandoned and they'll get demolished at some point.
At some point.
Yeah.
And then there's no plan to raise this bridge, I guess.
No,
At this point.
no, there was a thought about doing something down here because the river comes here and then it crosses. But that'll have regional impacts more than what just the village would. So we'll see what happens when these new maps come out, but. Yeah, the bridge did not cause the flooding. Sure, it was, I think you could get to right here and this bridge part was underwater, but. The issue was maybe downstream here where this started all backing up and then that caused the problem here. So there was talk about looking at the culverts and stuff that were on Highway 56 there, but I don't know if anything will come of that. I mean, they had dumpsters and trailers and all kinds of stuff that got washed out and are sitting by the culverts, and they had to clean all that stuff out of there too. So, we'll see in 10 years how things are looking, but they're set up right now to prosper, and like I said, with the fiber they got through town, Viola could be a thriving small community here to support itself for quite a while, and with hopefully they get the solar going that they want. Can you expand even more on the solar? What's the detail? Yeah, well, you guys got a nice solar array that got put in here. We tried to get that job too a few years ago. We didn't get it. So,
We surveyed it.
yeah. Jeff Liska, who's the DPW and for the city here, he's the electric guy too. He is trying to get solar so that they aren't so dependent on the other utility companies, because this utility prices spike so badly and it's very expensive. So they are looking at a couple spots here. Let me see if I can pull my other map up. Right next to the high school down here, they're looking at putting in a big solar array. Go Macro already has solar fields on all the roofs. So on top of that, they put in for a grant to get a massive, similar to what you guys have here, to help offset the cost of any electric. And again, I'm not a solar guy. I don't know all the details about the electrical stuff, but that's just getting underway and in the works. I think they're getting the grant for that. But to do that, that's another several $1 million to make that happen. I don't know that they'll have grant money to do that all at once, but maybe over 3, 4, 5 years, they'll be able to build on what they're able to start with, and then not be so dependent on the electricity, and they can use solar to help offset the costs for that. That's their goal.
Any other questions? Yeah, there's one over there.
Is there a dam in
Kickapoo?
well in Viola?
A dam?
Yeah.
No.
Or like a weir or anything like that?
Mhm. No, we did talk. One of the things was to put a levee that would protect a lot of the town. That cost was astronomical low too. It was millions and millions of dollars to build that up and to build up the state highway so that they could protect the village.
Mhm.
But that was one thing that was talked about at one time. Anything else?
So you talked about like the future. You've written about them. You talked about like the future, like potential economic boom there.
Mhm.
So did like rezoning and stuff and design account for like a big increase in population in the future or anything like that?
Well, again, this is a community of 700. If it were to double, say 1,500, that would be huge for that. I don't know that it would be that big. They're trying to get other commercial people like Dollar General or somebody like that to come in. That would be a big lift for the community. Right now, they've got like a quick trip zip stops there is their thing. Otherwise, they're going to some other bigger communities that are down the road at 20 minutes or whatever. We didn't. The sanitary sewers and the water systems are set up to expand. That's not a problem. There may have to be more work with the storm system if they were to expand out, but anything that we just did with the 2 developments, the one up here on the hill and downtown, that can handle the infrastructure they got now can handle that stuff. The roads are in good shape. You know, they can handle traffic like that. They're not expecting a lot of big semi stuff. The semi stuff will stay on the highway and go to Go Macro. If they were happen to get another big business like that, then they'd maybe have to make some provisions like that, but they'll be set up for quite some time.
Okay. There's a question in that. Oh, good. All right. Okay then.
Wants to go.
Okay. All right. So it's 6 o'clock. So we'll do this. I will officially end it first, and then if you have any questions, feel free to stop and then ask the speakers. And then thank you again for the in person and also on Zoom. Thank you for your time, and then hope you can join us for the next seminar. Thank you very much. And then please help me thank the speakers. Thank you very much. At the same time, I'm gonna stop recording. So if you have any questions,